So, and we decided to fight back, not with anger, not with violence, but with love, with care, and with deep spirituality, which stems from our tradition. And so, this is what keeps us, walking our talk every single day.
Welcome to Crossing Thresholds Religion, Resilience, and Migration, a special mini series of Walk, Talk, Listen produced with the Joint Learning Initiative on Faith and Local Communities and based on new research with Christian Aid. In this series, we highlight personal stories and lived wisdom from people navigating climate impacts, faith, culture, and movement. We invite you to join us.
My name is Maurice Bloem, and I would like to welcome you to yet another episode of Walk, Talk, Listen. Hey everybody, welcome to the special Walk, Talk, Listen series. I'm delighted with today's guest who will introduce herself. Bina, please go ahead.
Yes. Greetings, everyone. Mayambutayam taram na okcheri. In my indigenous language, my name is Binalakshmi Nepram. You can call me Bina. And I am from the state of Manipur in northeast of India, bordering Myanmar. Yes, and I am an indigenous poet, scholar, and a practitioner who's working on the intersections of conflict, climate, and indigenous spirituality and peace building to bring the peace and the healing that each and every one of us on this planet deserve.
Wow. And Bina, are you today also there in India? Or are you somewhere
Yes,
else?
at the moment, because of the security threats I received, I've been advised
Mhm.
not to disclose my locations, but I am on planet Earth.
So that's good to know. Although I would have been interested if you would not been on Earth. So where you would be. It's so great to have you, Bina. Can you tell a bit about where were you born and raised, and tell a little bit about your youth, your caretakers, your siblings. How was it?
Yes. Um, I was born in the state of Manipur, which is literally translated as land of jewels. It's a beautiful, former Asiatic nation state, which was merged under duress with the Union of India in the year 1949. We are a 5,000-year-old indigenous nation state, Asiatic nation state, with a written history and a culture and a spirituality which is deeply unique. Um, in Manipur, our indigenous faith is called Sanamahi, which means worshiping the rays of the sun, and we are very much connected and living with nature and also with communities. I was born in a family of 7 brothers and sisters. I am child number 6. So I hope your audience is not shocked at the number, but my mother was the only child of her parents. So she wanted a big family. So I grew up in a very big household where we grew our own food. We went and fetched our own water from the turquoise ponds. And we did everything on our own, including making the clothes that we wear, weaving the clothes that we wear, and ensured a life which is very much connected with the elements of the earth around us. So I grew up but even though I had a beautiful family, big family, I didn't realize till I grew up that I was actually growing up in a war zone, because
Mm.
the place that I am in is under what is known as Armed Forces Special Powers Act, akin to martial law. So I grew up under martial law, and my family still lives under martial law right now.
And so if you're saying, you did not realize it till later, um, that you were growing up in a war
Yeah.
zone, was that maybe because you were younger than the other siblings, or did none of you realize that you were living in
No,
a war zone?
in any conflict zone,
Mhm.
a child growing up in that conflict zone, we think that's the normal. You see,
Okay.
that was what happened with me.
Hmm.
The military combing operations, the death of my niece, um, people dying. Before COVID, we knew what was lockdown, because for 100 days there was a time when I couldn't go to school because of everything. Nobody was allowed to leave the home for 100 days, and everything cordoned off. So no, for a child growing up or a person growing up in a war zone, we thought that was the normal till we came out of that environment, and where I realized when I first came to New Delhi for my studies, and I shared what is happening with Manipur with the rest of India, and my friends couldn't believe it. That's when I realized I grew up in abnormal war-like situation. Yeah.
And when you introduced yourself, you said, you're a poet, you're a humanitarian, etc. And you're doing a lot of different things.
Yes.
Um, what first drew you personally and spiritually into this work of peace, land, and justice?
Yes. So, as I mentioned, when I was a child, I wanted to be a physicist. I was very much fascinated by science. My mother and parents are both science background, and in my culture, if you don't do science, you're not doing anything at all. So I have two sisters who are medical doctors. A brother who was in engineering. So I had a family of full of professionals. During a very difficult time, doing their best in their work. But then um, I shifted the work that I'm doing, because when I came out from home and started studying in India's capital, New Delhi, the thing is, the more you go away from home, the more you realize what home is for you. And when I realized that home is under war, so the trajectory of my research in Delhi University and Jawaharlal Nehru University, where I studied, all my questions became why there is so much war, why there is so much of violence, why there is so much of killing, why there is even a martial law in the world's largest democracies. So all these questions turn me into who I am today, because I realize that something is not right. When you have 3 to 4 people shot dead every day, when we have 1,500 cases of extrajudicial killing recorded and sent to the Indian Supreme Court from Manipur, from one state alone, and when I saw so much of military and so many of armed groups in my home region, I realized something is happening. So I started conducting research, writing, analysis. I also wrote a lot of poetry growing up, because I was always, I think, born someone who loves writing. So I've been writing since the age of grade 6 until today, and I think it is during this process of trying to understand why there is war, and also the search for me, there was so much of violence that I started aspiring for peace. I feel that human beings should live in peace and not in war or warlike situation. And then I grew up in a family where my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, was a medicine man. He was someone who used indigenous healing methods. He was a very spiritual indigenous person who honored his legacy, who ensured that we as a family also was able to understand the connection with humans, nature, and the spiritual world around us in ways that I think my books didn't teach me. So I think it was also very practical knowledge on ground zero, where I saw my parents, my grandparents also adhering a way of life which was not in conformity with the way I was seeing the world, where uh, when we cook a meal at home, my mother would send me with a little bowl to give it to my neighbor. So it was a one of caring and sharing, a shared community, shared spirituality, both rooted in culture, history, and traditions, and way of life that I became who I am right now. Yeah.
Thanks, Bina. Can I maybe piggyback on the indigenous practices and maybe spiritual traditions that you alluded to?
Yes.
Um, Can you maybe share a moment when such a practice or
Yeah.
tradition helped your community to respond to shock, a shock like floods, droughts, militarization, or displacement?
Yes, absolutely. I think because we are so much rooted in nature that even after 70 years of conflict, our people continue to be resilient. And yes, our spirituality also comes from nature. Our spirituality also comes from the food we eat. We eat a lot of bamboo shoot, for instance, which has a good source of fiber. So Manipur has produced Olympic Olympians from such a tiny state of India, very strong. So the spiritualism is not just in nature, but it's also in the food we eat, in the way we start our everyday life by worshiping the rays of the sun and ensuring that we ground ourselves every morning and ground ourselves, for example, in the evening we light a lamp, look up to the rays of the moon, and thank. And also have fresh water, flowers, and incense sticks to just ground us at the end of the day and every morning as we wake up. This is a ritual which every Manipuri household practice every single day. So I think in moments of turmoil, even if there's a conflict, a military calming operation, or even for that matter, a disaster like floods, droughts, and COVID, we never give up our practices.
Bina reminds us that Indigenous knowledge is not folklore or myth, it's a living science. It's survival. The research supports this insight. Communities often rely first on their own knowledge holders in moments of climate disruption. Local faith and indigenous knowledge systems often provide the earliest warnings, responses, and adaptations to climate impacts and are frequently overlooked by external actors. When Bina says our knowledge is survival, she captures a truth the research also lifts up, that resilience begins with the people rooted in place.
And I think that's one instance. Number two, when conflict was really rising, when violence was really rising, the mothers of Manipur came together, and because of the ethos of shared responsibility, there were bamboo huts built in every corner of Manipur, where our mothers and grandmothers took take turns, just like the mothers of the Plazo in Argentina when their children disappeared. It was in these moments, in the night when everybody was sleeping, in winter, cold times, as well as in summer, our mothers took in the strength from who we are, and they started galvanizing to protect our land and our lives by patrolling the streets of Manipur with bamboo torches, because it's in the night when the military come to pick up our children. It's in the night where many of the killings happen. So our mothers, rooted in the tradition of being together at these times and taking strength from each other. During the day they are teaching, during the day they are selling rice, they are in the fields, but in the night, they were all together under this bamboo hut and keeping a vigil so that we remain safe. So this is one of the very strong examples I see rooted in our tradition, in our spirituality, that the indigenous women of Manipur are able to continue to be resilient in very difficult warlike situation.
When Bina speaks about women holding communities together even as they face the greatest risks, the research affirms this too. Climate pressures deepen inequalities, especially in places already affected by conflict. Climate impacts compound existing inequalities. Women and girls face heightened risks of displacement, exploitation, and violence. Yet, women are also central to community resilience as first responders, knowledge holders, and peace builders. Bina's leadership shows how women are not only vulnerable to climate disruption, they are leaders in navigating it.
Mm. If I ask you, Abina, is there a word, because we talked about resilience, and is there a word in your local language, your own language? And if so, what is it? Or is it something that you need to describe? And then how would you describe it?
Yes. In our local language, the word resilience or bravery is called tauna. Tauna means courage. It means resilience. The moment you say the word tauna, I already feel my heart and my soul literally getting strong. Tauna is courage that is within you. It's that spirit which lives within you, who lifts you every time you want to cry, who lifts you every time you feel the world is against you. It lifts you when even during the worst conflict times. So I think tauna, lingjel, tauna, bravery and courage are also words that we intermittently use in our indigenous language, in our culture. And tabak tauminaba means working together, not alone, not individuals alone struggling it out, but collective, a collective feeling of joy and a collective feeling of shouldering that pain inflicted because of 7 to 8 decades of violent conflict. So, I know my people are suffering. There's no doubt because of the way in which for several years, but I also am absolutely in amazement of how we have continued to survive through these very difficult, dark times.
If I ask you what traditional or spiritual practices of resilience do outsiders most often overlook or misunderstand, what would you mention?
Yes. And the funny thing, Maurice, is this that indigenous cultures and spiritualism has always been sort of shunned away, kept in a box as if this is something of the past. And, I grew up with different faith traditions. Can you imagine? So I grew up indigenous, but I went to a Christian school, a Christian convent school. So I learned all my prayers. And then when I grew up, I read the Quran. I took part in a competition, essay writing competition on the Quran, and I won the third prize, all India level. So I read the Hadiths, I read the Quran, and then in New Delhi, several of my friends took me to Buddhist faith meetings. And then the Baha'is in Delhi, the Lotus Temple is a beautiful place in Delhi, which is a very iconic site where people of all faiths could come in. I grew up in multiple faith traditions, and misconception is not even misconception; it's a denial. Actually, it's a denial that indigenous spirituality and religious traditions exist, and outsiders don't even know how rich that is. And so that's one of denial, and also not just of denial but of purging it. In Manipur, uh, in the 17th century, I will not name that faith, but a big faith from India came and purged our indigenous religious texts by burning it. So it's not misunderstanding alone. It's about denial. It's about purging. It's about trying to make it disappear. So what we want to bring with whatever is left behind is that the misconception that our indigenous faith is of the past, that it's not relevant in today's time, that it is not inconsistent with the modern times. And so they look down upon us, they discriminate, they racialize it, they racially profile it, and even to the extent of hurting for what it is. So this is very tragic, and our appeal to the world is to be able to, and this knowledge has been buried for over 500 years, not just in Manipur but across the world. And Manipur and India and our Asian region had faced colonization also, so a lot of our religious practices, spiritual practices were hidden away, burned, kept away, purged. So this is what, and so for example, till today, Forget religion. The history of 3.3 people from Manipur are not in the textbooks of India. So Indians don't even know us, about our history, our traditions, way of life. So imagine if they don't know anything, how will they know us about our spiritualism? So this is the tragic reality that we have. Yeah.
So what keeps you walking your path, especially when the work is difficult?
Um, I realized early on in my life that when someone is pushed to a wall, when your identity is doubt, your citizenship is in doubt, your faith to a nation is in doubt just because you're indigenous. I learned very early on in my life that there are two things that can happen to anyone who are in the most difficult of circumstances, in the intersection of women, gender, indigeneity. That when you're pushed to a wall, two things happen. Either you get depressed, repressed, and oppressed, or you fight back. And so for me, I decided to fight back, not because I am a fighter. I'm a very peace loving person and still do. But I realize that nobody is going to give their rights, which are enshrined to us both in our Constitution as well as in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, in terms of political, economy, cultural, and religion. So those rights were all there for even us, but they were denied. They were gatekeepers. There were people who denied us these rights. There were people who didn't allow us to access these rights. So we decided the only way is to fight back. And we decided to fight back not with anger, not with violence, but with love, with care, and with deep spirituality, which stems from our tradition. And so this is what keeps us, walking our talk every single day. Yeah.
So when you look at the
Mm.
future of your community, of your land, what gives you hope?
Um, hope is in every day when the sun rises. The sun never says, I'm tired, I'm not going to rise today. So what gives me hope is to be decipher the language of Mother Earth around us, nature around us, how the earth, the universe, um, for millions of years did what it had to do the right way. But we, the human beings, are trying to turn it around in a way which hurts earth and hurts ourselves. And that is why you are seeing 132 wars in the world today, and 200 million people who are currently without homes and living in temporary shelters, relief camps across the world, across Asia, across Africa, across Latin America, and many other parts of the world, Asia Pacific. So I think it's really important. What gives us hope is when earth and the nature never failed us. Why, as human beings, why are we failing the earth? Why are we failing the world? So I think we are at this quintessential moment in history where we need a new social contract which will allow us to pause a little bit and stop tom-tomming each other that my religion is better than yours, my country is better than yours, my tradition is better than. No, we all are unique and beautiful in ways. What gives me hope is that every human being that I met in different cultures, the genuine ones, we all want to live in peace and harmony. But it's only a minuscule 1% who lords over our wealth, who lords over the world, and trying to destroy the rich fabric. So I think the hope lies in the people in every religion, people in every country, people in every community who has peace in their heart. Every religion teaches that. Every spiritual tradition teaches that. So to hold on to it is my greatest hope.
As Bina speaks about land as heart and identity, the research makes clear that climate change threatens not only homes, but histories, ceremonies, and spiritual connections. Religion and spiritual losses may be incurred due to climate change, especially when communities hold deep ties to specific lands. The decision to remain, even amid climate risks, can be an act of cultural preservation and agency. For many Indigenous communities, the decision to stay is not denial, it is devotion. It is a way of holding on to who they are.
I would like to pick up on you know your work around peace.
Yes.
Um, you know, because when we were talking in the beginning, you were also alluding to, okay, um, not everybody seems to be happy that you're working on peace. So can you tell about that in terms of, yeah, why are you a person that authorities, some of the authorities, are not happy with?
Yeah. This is very clear. It's because our politics have become criminalized and there is profiteering in war. So there is a war industry which is going on, an industry not just of war, but also an industry of trying to get critical minerals out of our lands, a war of human trafficking, narco trafficking. There's a lot of transnational illegal economies which are operating from our indigenous territories. And when we learned this and fought back, that's when we received threats for our peace work, for our indigenous women led peace work, which countries and communities should be happy about. But there are vested elements who are profiting from hurting us, who are profiting from hurting the planet. So they are the ones who don't like our peace work. And I feel really sorry for them because they have no peace in their hearts. So we continue to do what we got to do to protect people, peace, and planet wherever we are. Yeah.
Can you maybe explain to the listeners
Yes.
then? So, what is that? So, how is your life now? I mean, in terms of, what can you do and what can you not do, and where you need to be careful?
Yes, absolutely. Um, uh, I think, Global Witness last year said more than 300, 400 human rights defenders were killed, and out of it, one third of them are indigenous. So it's not just about my life, but several indigenous people are holding the line to defend their land, their rivers, and the planet have been killed for their work. Even during COP30, which is the world's largest gathering on climate change, at the middle of COP, an indigenous leader was gunned down in the Amazon region in Brazil. So that is the reality of what we are living. We are not naive about it. But what we want to tell the world, to mining companies, and to those who are, as Gandhi said, there is enough for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed. It's greed which is hurting us time and again. And we actually started what is known as a global network of indigenous peace builders, mediators, and negotiators to tell anyone who wants to profit from this world that to have to take the pre-prior and informed consent of indigenous people before they do anything in our territories, and also to negotiate with us what they want to do, rather than let flooding our area with guns, drones, and landmines and cluster bombs. We are asking them, what you did for the last 500 years didn't work. So please stop using those techniques of divide and rule, hurting us to extract our resources from our land, but rather, we, the indigenous people, also want development. Let us see what is it that you want, and everybody needs development. Everybody needs to progress. So, can we do it without hurting each other? Can we do it to ensure that everyone is able to benefit from the change and not go to only 1% of the world's population, who then controls global governments to do their bidding? You know, That's not the world that we want to envisage. We want a more egalitarian world which works for everyone, for the rich and the poor. We want a world that works for everyone and not just for 1% of the population. So, yeah, I would, yeah.
Okay, so no, thank you for the
Mm.
explanation. So in your work, um, so you need to do a lot of negotiation, collaboration,
Yes,
right? And with maybe different faith traditions and NGO government actors.
yes,
Um, so what makes that work sometimes successful and what sometimes makes it difficult?
yes. Um, First of all, I'll start with what makes the work difficult. Till today, in the world, there is, uh, a sort of a racialization of indigenous people and populations, a racial profiling, and uh, that hurts us because then they put us in a box, and rather than engaging with us, it's one of just tokenism where they feel it. Number one. Number two, the denial is also from nation states. For example, China denies indigenous people's existence in their territory, even though 51% of China is indigenous. They call them ethnic minorities, for instance. Bangladesh, Asia again, another country which have stopped using the word indigenous people and started using the word ethnic minorities. And they're two completely different terms. So the denial of indigenous existence by nations, the denial of, and then the sort of the complete denial of the existence really hurts us. So that's one thing that we want to continue to work at the UN level, at multilateral level, to address the issue, to tell that by telling us that by acknowledging the existence of indigenous people doesn't hurt countries. It actually will help the country in deepening democracy, ensure rule of law in our territory, so that indigenous people and nations can progress together and not the otherwise. So that's one thing. And then this percolates down to individuals and organizations who also sometimes think, oh, we don't have a head, we don't have a brain. They think we don't have intellect enough. So I've seen a lot of this inbuilt biases, which I hope that we can continue through debate, negotiation, and continued engagement with it. Having said this, I'm also so grateful to many others who have taken special care when they knew that we are indigenous to include us in their programs, to give us a voice. That has also happened. So I'm grateful to many countries, even organizations, international organizations, who have absolutely sought us out and gave us a platform. Even as a board member of an international right now, I am the first indigenous person to become vice president of the International Peace Bureau. That happened just like a month and a half ago. So again, I am so grateful to the International Peace Bureau, which is one of the world's largest peace federations, to be able to elect me to that position. So I'm deeply honored. So there are organizations who have really embraced us, and countries who have heard our voice. But there are really big countries who are denying our existence. So we appeal to those big countries that to work along with us, not to be afraid of indigenous people and our spirituality and way of life, but we are solution providers. We hold the key to protecting people, peace, and planet because indigenous people they take care of almost 80% of global biodiversity. So the traditional knowledge, the wisdom, the indigenous techniques of peace building could all be used to protect not only indigenous people, but generally humanity and the planet. We hold the key to this. So to work along and to with all to make this happen. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Bina. Um, I just want to like to come back and also to clarify
Mm.
to the listeners because you mentioned unrightly so instead of calling us indigenous people, we are called in certain instances ethnic minorities.
Yes.
Why is that an issue? Well, what is the difference?
Um, According to the United Nations, the word indigenous is self-defined term. Now,
Mhm.
just like, I don't know if you're aware, just like the word mother has never been defined, the word child has never been defined, the word family has never been defined. But we know who a mother is when you look at one. We know a child we know a family when we look at one. So just like that, for indigenous people is a self-identified term, and the people who identify self-identify as indigenous have very close ties with the land they are with. They have very close spiritual ties with the land they are a part of, and also very they have a specific connection with the land, the spirituality, and the ecology of the place. So that is how we understand, and indigenous people have self-identified themselves, and we are asking the world to honor this. That is the difference: the connection and tying with the land, with common language, common spirituality, common ecology, which connects. And you know it when you see one. You know it when you visit one. Um, so if and so uh, at the moment, even in the indigenous people are, because of colonization or marginalization has taken place. For me, I look at indigeneity of a section of people who have been left behind. And according to the UN Sustainable Development Goal, it says nobody should be left behind. So it's not a competition of a nomenclature. It's about trying to see who has been left behind, whatever term you give them. For me as a practitioner and a scholar and someone who cares for people, I'm like, who's left behind? Whatever name you call it, please let us bring it up. So indigenous community is one. So one should never compete and let minorities or terms, for example, there's a lot of conflict now on indigenous people and local communities at the UN level. You must have heard. So we are like, whoever has been left behind should be lifted. This is not of competition, but it's about inclusion, ensuring no one is left behind as we work towards a world to free from poverty, from hunger, and for wars. So this is how I would like to put it, Maurice. Yeah.
Okay. No, thanks, Bina. That's very
Yeah.
clear. What is so great to hear, of course, I mean,
Mm.
despite, challenges and difficulties, you're also able to work together. And I think that has to do with connection. And what I hope this podcast is also contributing to is connecting people.
Yes.
And maybe, you and I are connected. I connect you with the listeners. I also would like to connect you with the previous guest.
Mm.
And the previous guest is a question for you.
Mm.
And the question is,
how do they connect themselves to nature? I think that's an important question, especially in this day and age, because we've been taught as a Western society, assuming this person is from Western society, but I'm using myself as an example, is that we are taught to separate ourselves from nature. Nature needs to be dealt with instead of being in relationship with. And so, how do you integrate nature into your life would be the appropriate question, I believe.
Oh yes. Oh my God. We are born out of nature. We are born from the elements of the earth. And we go back to the elements of the earth when we die. So we are already connected with nature. Someone once wrote, if we know how complete we are as human beings, then all the products in the world would fail. But this illusion created in our consciousness through newspapers, radios, social media that, oh, to look beautiful, you need to buy that product. To share that you love someone, you have to bring a diamond ring. I mean, all of this, what in India we call Maya, it means a term means illusion. We are masters, we human beings are masters in creating illusion and selling them. So as a result, we feel, oh my God, we are nature. For indigenous cultures in Manipur, what we are made of, our human body, similar substances make up the tree, the river, the mountain. We are part of one universe, part of one metaverse. So I think we and again, this is why for Manipuri people, when we wake up, we don't wake up with a cup of tea or coffee. Uh, we get the fresh pond water, fresh flowers and incense sticks, and look up to the rays of the moon, or rays of the sun, which is the beginning of energy for the earth, honoring that energy and feeling that energy, you know. And so that's something that we do all our life to get connected. And you know, every human on this earth needs to be connected. So we know that 70% of our body is water. And that's why when we go to a water body, we feel peace, because 70% of us is water. So the more, and if you remember, in New Zealand, they have given legal personhood to the river, the Wanganu River, because all human civilizations started near rivers. And if we pollute our rivers, if we hurt our rivers, then it is also hurting us as humankind, as civilizations. So the Maori people fought for 160 years to get legal personhood for the Wanganu River. And this is a very beautiful example of how indigenous people have shown to the world that we are a part of nature, and we have to not, for indigenous people, you don't own nature. We live with nature. We don't own things. We are just temporary residents of this earth, which our children will then inherit the rest. So we are not owners of everything that the way the world is. Rather, we are caretakers of the world in which we are, born into.
Thanks, Bina. Your question for the next guest.
How do we heal people, peace, and planet? We are hurting. Can you imagine 132 wars and counting in the world today? And 200 million people displaced. We live in a world of fear mongering. We live in a world where we are othering each other. We are living in a world where we are not inclusive but excluding people. So how do we heal in such times when the world is hurting? Is my question, and for our next guest.
If the listeners could take one act of solidarity toward a neighbor, a migrant, or the earth, what would that be?
It starts with asking people, how are you doing? In today's world, we have stopped communicating with each other. We are only living with distrust with each other. My plea to your listeners would be, please open your heart and your mind to accept that the world has inherently good people than bad people. And to be able to have that trust, and most important, that respect, and to give human dignity back to the person that you are neighbors with, rather than distrusting, mistrusting, and othering. Please inject love. Please inject this sense that we are all human beings on one planet Earth. Somebody was telling us yesterday at a meeting that when you look at the Earth from the space, we are like this, a dot. And in this dot, how we are dividing us and separating us. I was telling her the other day that passport was an invention after World War I or II. It was an invention of the world wars. There were no passports before. But the way in which this whole panopticon of control over our lives is, and then insular, make us like micro sections of our lives, controlling and profiling it and documenting it and putting it online, where all our privacy has been lost. So I think in these times, we want to appeal to the humanity in each one of us to say, yes, we got as communities to grow, as nations to grow, as companies to grow. No one is denying that. But then to do it in a way which takes the free, prior, and informed consent of each and every one. so that we put everything on the table and discuss it, that we are able to grow together rather than destroying each other. As the Maori people would say, Maoris has a concept of mana in their heart, that when we meet someone, we come back with their manna intact. Means we come with our dignity intact. We honor the person whom we are with, and see what is the best that we can do for each other, rather than what is it that we can hurt each other. So we got to inject that more in beautiful ways to this world and around us. Otherwise, we are becoming insular as nations, as people, and as community, and that's not the right way. The right path is we are one world, one sun, and one moon for every human species and being in this planet.
If your journey had a soundtrack, a song, a chant, a rhythm, or sound of home, what would it be and why?
Oh my God, there will be a million chants. I mean, life is about rhythms. In my culture, in my Manipuri culture, the first thing you teach a child is tading, means how to have hand movements. I grew up learning classical dance, so rhythm is a part of our life through movement as well as in music. But the best music is universal. It doesn't have a language, and even if there's a language, you feel it. So for me, the best rhythms are sound of rolling waves, falling rains, falling snow, monsoon. I mean, sounds of birds, sounds of nature, sounds of water, sounds of wind, and sound of fire. All these are a part of our lives, and that's what accompanies us in this journey every single day, not just one track.
These conversations always go fast. I still have maybe one or two questions for you. Um, when the land, because this is what I heard you say. So when the land is threatened and weapons are everywhere, what does spiritual resistance look like in everyday life?
Yeah. The spiritual, to answer your question, because I grew up surrounded by guns all around. So much guns that for me, my resistance was to become nonviolent. And I am, and I will be till the day I die. I will never own a gun in my life and never hold. So it's because I saw so many guns and so many lives lost that nonviolent became my resistance towards violence. Um, I once calculated the cost of guns and cost of bullets. It's so cheap that you can buy it at the price of a chicken. Guns are so easily available in today's world. And they are so cheap to buy. Bullets cost not even 50 cents. Guns of $50 to $100 are easily available. Hand grenades, so easily available all around the world. The only way to respond in this, what I call web, is again to turn deeply into the strength and the courage of nonviolent peace work. That's why we innovated what is known as Indigenous peace building as a pathway to confronting the land grabbings, the militarization and weaponization of our lives. To let Indigenous ways of spiritual and social, economic, and even scientific ways of looking at life and the world around us determine us. For instance, in Manipur, we have a treatise, a written treatise, text, which is called Umanglon. It means a treatise of the forest, which teaches us how to renew forest. It teaches how to live in community with forest. For instance, in Manipur, before you cut a tree, you seek forgiveness. If you have to cut the tree for making a boat, for anything, you have to plant 10 more trees. That's one principle. The other principle is in many parts of Manipur and northeast of India, we have what is known as sacred groves. Sacred groves are forest areas where, as per our culture, you cannot cut a single tree from there. Because we have so many sacred groves, that they became now climate stabilizers. So the climate of Manipur, unlike Delhi, is not hot, not cold. So we were from ancient times, we're able to stabilize the climate through our sacred groves. So these are some of the methodology that even in times of warfare, we continue to look at how we lived our life without greed, to be very honest, because greed is what is driving the world into a war. If you look at Sudan and Sahel, what is the conflict about, which is driving 7 million people out of their homes? Greed for gold. And countries are involved in that. And I'm sorry, shame on them. How many day before yesterday, children were killed? Just a couple of months ago, 2,000 people were killed, 400 were killed in a hospital alone. So again, the way we have become non-humans, the way we are killing each other because of greed, of critical minerals, of gold, of mining. This human beings have to, governments, companies, we have to come to this moment where we cannot do this. So that's how, using those methodology, as I said, not greed, but sharing the resources that we have and ensuring that we do not exploit the earth further and in the process hurting the earth. So I think we need to be, as I said, we're in the moment in time that if we do not understand this now, we'll be driving ourselves to doom.
What do women do in moments of crisis, that you're describing, that formal peace systems fail to see?
Um, Women respond to crisis and conflict, whether it's human made or natural, by just keeping on doing what they need to do, just continuing their life. Um, Tell me of women in Asia, I can only talk of Asia, where one day an Asian women think, oh, I'm not going to cook, what happens to the home? So women do what we need to do every day, do our work besides taking care of what we need to take care. Women also starting how to self-care. So we realize we are not machines. So in Manipur, we have created women's networks to take care of ourselves. We created shelter homes for women where, because at home we are all constantly made to work. So in these safe spaces, we are playing caroms, we are, massaging each other's hair, we are, we are, doing, dance practices, we are doing stitching, we are doing things which are cathartic. That's one way. And a lot of singing, a lot of dancing, a lot of just connecting with the earth around us. So that's one thing that I have seen and I have done, and I am in community. When I went to Guatemala, the women, we all came together. We had a fire in the middle, and we wrote all our worries and put that in the fire, and let the universe take it away from us. Because what is life without worries? We all are constantly living with difficulties in our lives. So one of our coping mechanism is always we always gather in circles. We always gather in circles. We share what we have in circles. We light the fire in circles. We put the flowers in circles to be able to center and ground ourselves. And most importantly, uh, women, we also realize that the work that is happening in our home region is not enough. We do what is needed on ground zero, but to be able to connect with other sisters, the sisters in around the world who are doing similar work. So we are able to connect with sisters from Guatemala, from Brazil, sisters from Papua New Guinea, sisters from Sudan, Sahel, Myanmar, Sami people, our Sami sisters from, Fiji, sisters from Guam. So we were able to connect. So this connection is really important and vital. It gives us strength, it gives us resilience, and we are able to then, find a pathway which works for each of our communities when we return home. So this is how we do, and we all have also started keeping a tab on what's happening globally. I have just returned from the COP30 summit meeting in Belém in Brazil. So we have also started taking a vigil on what's happening around the world, which concerns our lives. So to be able to attend the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues, to be able to attend COP, which is the convention on of state parties on climate change, where we were able to attend world summits, different world peace congresses. We are able to take part in, and also even going to Geneva and checking how CEDAW is working, and is it working for us? So looking at the conventions that countries have signed up to and holding them accountable to is also one method of of keeping a tab on what's happening to ensure that we're able to take care of ourselves at home with these documents, texts, and treaties.
Well, Bina, thank you so much for your willingness to talk with me and to share your wisdom and experiences. I asked you many questions. Nevertheless, is there a question that I did not ask you today that I should have asked you?
Yes. The question that I persistently have in my head is, how come every religion in the world talks of peace, but how come in the name of religion, people are creating wars? And how do we work to stop that together, working together, is the question that I would like to pose to you and all your listeners.
Yeah. Wow. What would you say? What would your answer be?
I ask you a question, you better answer that. We leave it with the listeners, and then, because the world is very deeply divided on religious lines, and it hurts. It's very, the religion should be teaching us about peace and unity and well-being. How come religion is used to wage wars in today's world? Is my question to the world.
Yeah. My quick answer is that I think we heard you actually answer that question today. So if people did not, the listeners did not hear that, then they should rewind and start listening to you again, because I think you gave the answer, in our conversation today. So thank you so much for everything you do, for who you are, and all the best.
Thank you, Maurice. Thank you for inviting me to your beautiful podcast, and I hope we are able to continue this conversation in the new year to come.
Great.
Thank you for listening to this episode of our special series, Crossing Thresholds Religion, Resilience, and Migration, produced by JLI together with Walk Talk Listen. This conversation is part of our effort to bring new research to life through real stories that show how faith communities, Indigenous knowledge, and local leadership respond to climate impacts long before the world pays attention. If you'd like to learn more about the research behind this series, you can find the full report and additional resources on JLI's website, jliflc.com, and Christian Aid's website, christianaid.org.uk. You can also listen to more episodes at walktalklisten.podbean.com or on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you again for joining us, and we hope you'll continue walking, talking, and listening with us in the episodes to come.
Thank you for listening to Walk, Talk, Listen. Please check us out on 100mile.org or follow us on Facebook or Instagram.